right, we might as well get into this one. Jason just filled me in on this one as we headed to air, and this is coming in from Okie. So this is Stuart Mandel from On3, correct? The Athletic. I'm
Athletic.
sorry.
Yeah, Athletic.
The Athletic, who has predicted Oklahoma to go 7-5, and I believe based on Okie's post here and otherwise 5-4 in the Big 12. Okay. I would think that most people believe that Oklahoma is a better team than that, including myself. I've got my prediction out there. I posted the video this week if you want to check that out. But what's funny is, and I told you this, Jason, and you may have experienced this at some point in making predictions, that if you put them all out there with records, then people start to make the connections. Okay, well, if you've got them at such and such record, you've got them at such and such record, that means that out of conference, they're going to beat them, and they put it all together. And you got to watch yourself, because sometimes you box yourself into a corner. And he's got an interesting, not just record for Oklahoma, but by connection, Nebraska and its wins and losses.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Oklahoma social media, specifically Oklahoma Twitter, just they are the most, I think, one of the most sensitive fan bases in the country because of things like that. And so, I think this brought some light to what's a worst case scenario for Oklahoma, and I think what's a best case scenario for Oklahoma. Before we get to that, to your point, Mark, when some folks started asking some questions, they had both Oklahoma and Nebraska going 2-1 in non-conference, and so that even raised more questions. And he had Nebraska winning Saturday against Northwestern, and then coming back off the trip from Ireland back to Nebraska to lose to North Dakota, and then turn around and beat Oklahoma a couple of weeks later, which, I mean, obviously anything can happen. Would be shocked. I mean, obviously more shocked at the second loss to North Dakota than anything else. But yeah, I mean, I think and he's a little bit on an island. I haven't seen too many 7-5 area predictions for Oklahoma. I mean, now I think you could see, being objective here, I think you could see like a worst case for Oklahoma would be 7-5. Maybe a best case is 12-0, right? I mean, I think they could potentially. I think it's difficult, but I think it would be more likely to see Oklahoma go 12-0 than it would to see them go 7-5. I think what 7-5 looks like for Oklahoma is a fair amount of injuries, a fair amount of, I don't know that I would say regression, but a fair amount of non-improved offensive line play, a fair amount of defensive play that is not up to the standards that Venables and staff brings in. Now on the other side, 12-0 is also a bit of a stretch, given the fact that how much there's a newness to this staff, a newness to the players and stuff like that. Now, in terms of this last comment here, I think in terms of the fan base, do they turn on BV? I don't think so. I think it would depend on the manner. I think anything minus a losing season, I think he would still have the support that he needs to. But if you throw out a 6-6 and 7-5, you better have massive improvements in year two. And so, I mean, for me, I've predicted on our show last. I know we didn't put records, but I think Oklahoma's really probably 10-2, 11-2. And I think this would be a great season for them. They go 11-2. They make a New Year's Six bowl game. They're just on the outside looking in on a playoff berth, and that builds towards next season. So yeah, I think, like I said, it's one of the most interesting years for Oklahoma, because you've seen Oklahoma picked anywhere between those two. I don't know that I've seen hardly anyone pick Oklahoma to go undefeated, but I've seen a few amount of 11-1s out there, and very few 7-5s. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, but I think in this whole vein, I've said this over and over again, and I'm going to continue until the game's over. But the Nebraska game for both teams is just so pivotal on both sides of it to see what that trajectory looks like for the rest of the season. Going forward for both teams.